If you're anything like me before IGCSEs, then you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. It feels like exam just popped out of nowhere and you are very much not ready for it. You feel stressed, you are anxious, you're confused and you're worried, and you want a good score, but you just have no idea what the hell you're doing, and you're just kind of winging it and hoping that you get a good score along the way. If this sounds like you, then I know exactly how you feel. And back then when I was doing my IGCSEs, I just wished that a future version of myself would somehow come back and tell me if I was doing things correctly or not. So that's exactly what I'm gonna be doing today. So I'll be sharing a few things that I wish I knew before doing my IGCSEs. Knowing these things would have saved me so much time and headache, and I hope that it can do the same to you too. So without further ado, let's get straight into the first thing that I wish I knew. This is one of the biggest things that I wish I knew earlier. I just wish that someone would have told me that the only thing that matters is doing past paper questions. Reading your textbook doesn't matter, reading your notes doesn't matter. The only thing you should be focusing on is doing past paper questions. So instead of reading my notes or my textbook, I just wish that I have spent all of my time doing practice questions. Doing past paper questions uses active learning, where you actually have to retrieve the information from your brain by yourself, whereas reading your notes or reading your textbook is passive learning. So if you already spend the majority of your time doing practice questions, then you are on the right path. But if not, try shrinking the time you spend on other things and focusing more on doing practice questions. So now that we got this basic fundamental thing that you need to know out of the way, let's get into all the little details. What a lot of students do is they try to speed run through as many past paper questions as possible, because surely by doing more, that means you're learning more, right? The truth is, checking is where the magic happens. Checking your answers is where you learn new things and you identify the gaps that you have missed. And oftentimes when your goal is to simply do as many papers as you can, you often neglect the checking part of the equation. So it makes absolutely no sense to neglect checking if your goal is to learn more. The thing is, every question has this list of fundamental knowledge that you need to know before you can answer the question. And the main reason why you get a question wrong is because you've missed one of the tiny fundamentals, and checking helps you identify which fundamental you have missed. So when you get a question wrong, instead of just putting a big red cross next to it, what you should be doing is to try to reflect on what you were thinking when you were answering the question. So sort of rewind back in time and go through the processes that you were thinking before when you were answering the question. So anyways, what I wish I knew was just to be more intentional when I'm checking my answers and to spend more time reflecting. I wish I was able to tell my younger self that instead of picking quality over quantity, I should have aimed for both. So let me tell you how you can aim for both quality and quantity when you're doing practice questions. So we've already identified that checking your answers is where the magic happens, and checking is where you should be spending the most time on. So checking your answers and reflecting in yourself goes into the quality section. But what about the quantity? How do you get both quantity and quality at the same time? Well, the answer to that is to spend less time doing each question. So how do you actually spend less time doing questions? The first thing that you can do is to use bullet points. So this applies to subjects where you have those big 8-mark essay questions. Instead of answering those questions in complete sentences with perfect grammar, use bullet points instead. Using bullet points will save you a ton of time, and it will also make your answer clearer. Now, apart from using bullet points, the other thing that I would recommend is to have messy handwriting. This is just my opinion, but having a messy handwriting saves a lot of time, especially when you're writing in those cursive letters. It just saves you so much time, and when you write in messy handwriting and you combine it with using bullet points, then you're going to be speeding through past papers like they are nothing. The third thing that you can do to save time is to skip easy questions. So before you do a question, it is always a good idea to mentally walk yourself through how you're going to do it. And if you're able to mentally walk through the entire question, you know the exact steps that you need to take to get to the answer, then completely skip the question. Skipping easy questions will also save you lots of time, but just be careful when you use it. I'd also like to emphasize that the whole reason why we're doing this is so that we could spend more time checking our answers. So if you do all of this and you still neglect checking your answers, then the whole thing is pointless. I wish someone would have told me earlier to spend more time looking at keywords. The truth is, Cambridge really doesn't care what you write. You could write an entire paragraph that is logically correct, but if you have no keywords in them, then you're not going to get any marks. The thing that I wish I did was to combine using bullet points with using keywords. So for example, if I had a 4-point question, what I'd do is I'd put 4 bullet points down, and for each bullet point, I'd simply write down a keyword. So when I check the mark scheme, the keywords that I've written should be exactly the same as the keywords in the mark scheme. So this makes it easier and faster for you to check, and it makes your answer more clear. Just to be clear, I only do this when I'm practicing at home. In the actual exam, I try to write my answer in complete sentences including the keyword, just to be safe. With our attention span nowadays, studying for 5 hours at a time just isn't gonna work. We're gonna get easily distracted, and if we keep pushing ourselves even though we're distracted, we're gonna end up wasting a lot of time and not learning anything much. So, what I wish I told my younger self was to study in short, concentrated bursts. And inside these bursts, you should be in something called a deep work state. So deep work is when you're totally focused on what you're doing. There's nothing around distracting you, it's just you and the work. All that matters is doing the work in front of you, and your focus is 100% directed towards your work. So what works for me is to have a 40-minute deep work session, a 10-minute break after that, and then another 40-minute deep work session. And I like to do this early in the morning because no one disturbs you in the morning. And I don't know about you, but doing difficult tasks in the morning is just easier for me because you get to do it and get it done so that you don't have to stress about it for the rest of your day. So I wish I told myself earlier to have these concentrated deep work sessions instead of just studying 5 hours every day. This could have saved me so much stress and so much time, and it could have made learning more fun for me. So those are the 5 things that I wish I knew earlier. Just by knowing these things, it could have saved me so much time and headache, and I hope that it can do the same to you too.